right, guys, so last night putting this together, I realized that I deleted the older files of Special Tools number 1 and 2 of trying to do it the normal way, and then ended up pulling the final drive housing. So on the 6000 series, there is a special tool. So the nut goes on here, and then you have a hardened washer, and then you have your cup, and the bolt sticks through the cup and threads into the pin. So then as you tighten that nut, it pulls the bolt and the pin into the cup and removes it from the tractor. Now, it's not uncommon that they get a little bit tight. And so the first thing we did was, on a lot of them, we had very good luck with just this cutoff wrench with a long pipe, 4 or 5 foot pipe. And you just deadlift your way. And but now this one, it stopped. I mean, it just stopped to the point that I was lifting hard enough on the wrench that pretty soon you start to see the bolt turning with the nut, so you know your threads are starting to fail. And to get it loose, I'm 300 pounds, and to get it loose, I was lifting hard enough that to get it loose, I had to bounce on that pipe a little bit to get it loose. And so then you take the final drive off. We've had that before. They get tight, they don't want to come, so then you're just like, okay, fine. You pop the final drive off, then you pull them out, and that usually gains you quite a bit, and they usually come out. This one, pop the final drive off, and I still could not get that pin to move. And you're like, holy crap, now what do you do? And so after we were turning hard enough, you know, that you broke a hardened washer, it started to collapse the end of the cup, and you're ruining your threads on your bolt. And you're like, now what? You know? So that's where that guy come into play. And I think we can pick up the rest of the video from there. When removing the final drive, you saw the final drive was on the cart. And so when removing the final drive, they're on them big pins. This chisel starts between the final drive housing and the frame, and that gets it out most of the way. And then I use this big chisel, wedge it up there, and a couple smacks with the maul, and then the final drive is on the block and bolted how you see it a little bit. Kind of the background of how we got to the point we're at, and so I think now I can start the video of this tool and what's going on. Well, I'm trying. We got a 60-ton cylinder and a little air pump, and we can use that cylinder for other applications. So it's not just a one-off tool for us. It looks like it's obviously moving very slow, and that's okay. This is just some mild 1 1/4 inch. What do you got? 60,000 PSI tensile strength there. Nothing too major, but that bolt we had was failing. So I was doing the long pipe on the wrench and hitting it, and it was coming, but it's failing, and then it stopped coming. It froze. It froze in there, and so we're like, you know what? We do, you know, one of these a year, and we can get by doing it by hand and fighting and all that, but these are only going to get more common for us. And so we're like, let's just do it this way. So if I can pop a pin in a few minutes, you know, 15 minutes to thread this in and set this up and pump it out, versus hours of sitting there wrenching and pounding and yeah. And so I'll keep going here, and we'll see if it moves it or if it's just going to tear the rod apart. I don't know. You know, you got 20 ton of rod tension there. You're not getting near 20 ton of pull threading a bolt. And so, yeah, we'll go a little more and see what happens. It moves so slow. You almost got to have your hand on it. Man, that works slick. You can see how far it pulled it out, except the puller's designed to be pulling through the distance of that final drive, and you can see how the pin is shouldered. So I'm missing that much material or that much depth to my pulling cup. So I need to add just a whisker of length to that cup. Now it'll be fun to get to the other side and just pop the wheel off. No matter what, you pop the wheel off so you can work in here. But pop the wheel off, leave the final on, and just brrrr, done. Oh, man. Oh, you gotta love it when a plan comes together. So, one pin, almost out. Okay, I didn't even add to the cup. All I did was literally slide that thing, because that's an easy 50 some odd pounds. It's not light by any means. And so just by giving it a couple slide hammer pulls, bunk, it is out. That is awesome. So now that we're back to full swing, let's get the hoist over here and get this canopy suspended up and get that other pin out. Then we'll get this final drive back on. Then we'll kind of clean up around here. And then what we did was we made this nice stand. Dad made this nice stand. So this goes to the drawbar. This fits under each axle, so you can adjust your side to side. And then we put a bottle jack up here, and that holds the transmission. Works like downtown with a few less people. So I'll spend a couple hours getting cleaned up and organized and set up to do this side, and we'll go from there. This is a top one that I had a hard time with. It made a couple good pops before I was able to start the video, and so I guess I grabbed the camera because I thought something would break. I put a long piece of tube here. There wasn't much difference in size. It still sits against the frame good, but so then I don't have to worry about see, when you pull on that pin, you got a cap here so you can pull that pin against the end. Well, I think that piston has so much power that when that pin hit the end of this cap, that I could easily pull the threads right off of the tool. So now I should just be able to pull until it falls and see how that works out. It's kind of funny, there was a couple bonk, bonk. I thought, uh-oh. But if it's still pulling at this point, obviously my weld didn't break, but hopefully we're not pulling the threads right out of that pin. The pin's harder than the shaft, you'd like to believe. By golly, if that thing comes out, I might be onto something. The other nice thing with that long tube, you can see it gets me away from that cab mount, whether it's a open platform or a cab tractor. Oh yeah, she's almost, yeah, there we are. All right, awesome. Let's get that final back on, and oh man, There we go. So this side, so there's our stand underneath. So you got your steel frame. I wonder if we can see this from the back side. There you go. That's a nice shot. So you got your steel frame, and that's what the floor jack on this side and the bottle jack on that side. They're holding this frame up. And then the stand here. So the drawbar, I'm pulling down on the drawbar to help pivot it as well. But that cross stand under there, that's holding the transmission. And you can see the transmission right up here, you know, your differential, and you got your 4-speed range box and your 4-speed power shift, and then your reverser housing. And so then that just rolls on out. We got to drop the drive shaft, and we got some control cables, and you know, we got work to do to get that thing out of there. But at this point, I just sweep the floor up, get all the crumbs out of there once everything's out, and then just roll the transmission right out. And man, oh man, I'll tell you what, this thing, I didn't even pull the final drive off. Just put that sucker on there, and there's a lip on the casting, just a little lip there. So I ground a notch. You can see that notch to go over that. So what I need to do is get him in the mill machine, get it true to the head of the mill, fly cut one end, flip it over, fly cut the other. That way we know that sucker is perfectly true on the ends, and then cut a good notch on the one side to fit around them. Just that little lip right there. And yeah, I mean, that pump, you know, it takes 10 minutes to move an inch, but yeah, we just saved the customer no hours, because I'm going to write all the extra hours down if the customer's watching. It was a heck of a fight and horrible battle. We also, these wheel bolts, we might have to pick up a metric tap and chase these threads. And you can see I had to torch them bolts off, because them bolts weren't moving for nothing. But when they're off of there, we're away from the fuel tank, we can weld, torch, heat over here all we want. And so yeah, so there's part one. There's part one. We'll get going on part two someday. But yeah, that puller works slick. You guys, oh, I wish you could have been here to work that pipe and that wrench. We had one that the pin wouldn't stop, but Dad, the customer, and myself took turns turning that thing, because every turn, well, when I was pulling on the pipe here in the video, I was pulling on that pipe, I was deadlifting enough that I'm 300 pounds, and when I went to loosen that nut, when it stopped moving, you felt it, because you lifted up, and I stood on that pipe at the end of that pipe, and I couldn't get that nut loose. So I was pulling pretty hard on that pipe every time, and to split that pipe open like that, whew, yeah. Lucky I didn't tip the tractor over, but you got a good feeling of stuff. And so, guys, I'm out. It's getting late. We got sirloin tonight, and we'll see you next time.